Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're looking closely at a really fascinating historical record from the Bible, Ezra chapter 2.
Right. And our goal isn't just to read through a list, is it?
No, definitely not. We want to dig into who these people were, how this returning community was structured, and what all these, incredibly specific details tell us about their journey back from Babylon.
And what they planned to do once they arrived in Jerusalem and Judah.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the first thing to grasp, I think, is that Ezra 2 is fundamentally an administrative document.
Like a registry?
Precisely. A very precise registry, capturing everyone who made this really significant move back home. It lists them mainly by family line, sometimes by their towns.
Which tells you right away that identity, their heritage, was incredibly important.
Absolutely paramount. It's right there at the start, setting the stage for this whole rebuilding effort.
It really does. And the record kicks off by naming the leaders, doesn't it? It wasn't just a chaotic return.
No, not at all. It was organized. You've got Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Realiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Misbar, Bigvai, Rehum, Bana. These are the key figures mentioned.
But one sort of steering the ship for this huge undertaking.
Yeah, providing the direction for what must have been, a massive logistical and social challenge.
So after the leadership, where does the list go?
It dives right into the main group, the men of the people of Israel, listed primarily by family descent.
And this is where the sheer level of detail gets, well, pretty staggering. The numbers vary quite a bit.
They really do. You see some large family groups. For instance, the descendants of Perish, 2,172 people. That's a big clan.
Wow, yeah.
But then you have others that are significantly smaller, like Gibra lists only 95.
So a real mix.
Definitely. But you also get these very large combined groups, like Path Moab through Jeshua and Joab. They total 2,812.
Okay.
The descendants of Elam were 100 and 254.
And the list just keeps going, name after name. Zatu, 945. Zakkai, 760. Bani, 642. Bebai, 623. It really shows the effort to count everyone by their family line.
And you've got Asgad with 12,222. Adonicum at 666. That number always jumps out at people.
Yeah.
Bigvai with 2,056. Add in 454. And smaller ones, too. Adai through Hezekiah, 98. Bazai, 323. Jorah, 112. Hashum, 223.
Each number represents a whole group of people with a shared history, right? All coming back together.
Exactly. And this focus on family tells us that rebuilding their social structure, grounded in who they were historically, was a huge priority. It wasn't just about filling up the land again.
It was about reestablishing their identity as a people.
Precisely.
So after the family list, the record adds another layer, listing people by towns.
Yes, it's just a listing people returning from specific towns or regions within Judah. This gives us a bit of a geographical picture.
Okay, so what does that look like? Are the numbers similar?
Again, quite varied. Some towns sent smaller contingents. Bethlehem, for example, only 123. Nineveh had 56. Anathoth, which was a Levitical city, had 128.
Yeah. Right, relatively small groups.
But then you get larger numbers linked to certain towns, or maybe clusters of towns. Kiryas Jearim, Kephirah, and Beeroth together sent 743.
Okay, getting bigger.
Ram and Geba added 621. And from Lod, Hadid, and Ono came 725 people.
So quite a spread. Any other notable ones?
Yeah, there are a few interesting ones. Michmash sent 122, Bethel and Ai 223, Nebo just 52, Magbish 156. Then there's the other Elam, which is interesting because Elam was also a family name, so this shows it's geographic. 12,254. Haram 320, Jericho 345.
But wait, the number for Senna is massive, isn't it? 3,630. That seems way out of proportion.
It absolutely is. That number from Senna always makes you pause. It's dramatically higher than any other town listed.
Any idea why?
Well, it could suggest Senna was maybe a particularly important settlement for the exiles in Babylon, or perhaps it acted as a major gathering point for the return.
Interesting.
Whatever the reason, it really highlights that this return wasn't just about Jerusalem. It was about resettling towns all across Judah, and Senna, for some reason, played a huge role in that.
Okay, so we've got the general population by family and by town, but the record gets even more specific, right? Focusing on the temple.
Yes, and this is critical. A primary motivation for this whole return was restoring worship at the temple in Jerusalem. So the list details the priests next.
Ah, right. And their numbers are pretty high, aren't they?
They are. Listed by family line again, Jediah, through Jeshua's line, had 973 priests returning. Immer, 1,052. Pashur, 1,247. And Haram, 1,017.
Wow, so thousands of priests ready to get back to work.
Exactly. But then contrast that with the Levites. They were also essential for temple service.
But their number is tiny here, right?
Strikingly small. Only 74 descendants of Jeshua and Kadmiel through Hodaviah. Compared to the thousands of priests, it's a tiny fraction.
That is odd. Why so few?
It's a puzzle, honestly. Maybe fewer Levites chose to come back in this first wave, or perhaps their situation in exile was different. It's one of those list details that raises more questions.
Okay, so after the Levites.
Then we get the singers, descendants of Asaph, who led the musical worship. There were 128 of them.
Okay.
And the gatekeepers for the temple, responsible for security and access. They numbered 139, listed under their family heads like Shallum, Ader, Talman, and others.
And it doesn't stop there, does it? There's even more detail about temple support staff.
Right. You have the temple servants, the Nethinim, and the descendants of the servants of Solomon. The list of temple servant families is really long. Ziha, Hasufa, Taboth, dozens of names.
Showing a large group fulfilling those roles.
Yes, a diverse group supporting the temple functions. And then the descendants of Solomon's servants, names like Sotai, Hasaphereth, Peruda. These were likely involved in temple upkeep and maybe some administration roles possibly handed down from the monarchy.
And what was their total?
The combined total for both those groups, temple servants and descendants of Solomon's servants, was 392.
So you really see the whole structure being accounted for. Priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, and all the support staff.
Every necessary role for restarting temple life.
Now, amidst all this careful counting, there's a section dealing with a tricky issue. People whose lineage couldn't be proven.
Yes, and this part tells us a lot about their priorities and challenges. There was this group, 652 people, who came back from places like Tel Milah, Tel Harsha, Kerub, Adon, and Immer.
Okay.
They wanted to be counted, but they simply could not prove they were descended from Israelite families. Their records were lost or missing.
And that caused problems, especially for priests.
A major problem. The record specifically names descendants of Hobaiah, Hakkoz, and Barzillai, pointing out this here, Barzillai had married into a famous Gileadite family and taken the name.
Right.
These guys searched high and low for their family records, which were absolutely essential to prove they could serve as priests.
But they couldn't find them.
Couldn't find them in the official registry. And the consequence was immediate and serious.
What happened?
They were excluded from the priesthood, declared unclean for service, because they lacked documented proof of their lineage.
Wow, that shows how seriously they took those requirements.
Extremely seriously. It had to be verifiable descent.
And didn't the governor step in with a specific ruling?
He did. The Tishatha, the governor, ruled that these priests whose lineage was unproven were forbidden from eating the most sacred food, the portions reserved only for ritually pure priests.
Until when?
Until a priest could consult using the Urim and Thummim.
Ah, those mysterious objects used for seeking divine guidance.
Exactly. So their status was basically put on hold, pending some kind of divine clarification. It just underscores how vital legitimacy and purity in the priesthood were, even with all the chaos of resettlement.
Okay, so after detailing all these different groups, families, towns, temple roles, even the questioned ones, the chapter gives us the big picture numbers, right? The totals.
Yes, it wraps up this section with summaries. The grand total for the whole assembly everyone listed before was 42,360 people.
42,360, that's a significant number.
It is, and the text specifically says this number is besides their male and female servants.
Right, so the actual number of people returning was even larger.
It's much larger. The servants numbered 7,337.
Okay.
And they also brought 200 additional male and female singers, separate from the 128 couple singers mentioned earlier, maybe for, general community celebrations or morale.
So add it all up, the main group, the servants, the extra singers you're looking at, over 50,000 people.
Easily. Over 50,000 individuals involved in this massive return and resettlement effort.
And they brought resources, too, not just people. The list includes animals.
Yes, and that's crucial for understanding the practicalities. They brought 736 horses,
Okay.
245 mules. Camels, though, interestingly, no number is given for the camels.
Wonder why.
And a huge number of donkeys,
Yeah.
6,720.
6,720 donkeys. Wow.
That number really tells the story, doesn't it? Donkeys were the workhorses, the main pack animals for a journey like that, and vital for farming and transport once they arrived.
It shows serious logistical planning. They weren't just wandering back. They were equipped.
Absolutely. This wasn't just a hopeful trickle. It was an organized, resourced expedition.
So this huge group arrives back at the site of the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. What's the first thing they do?
Well, according to the text, their immediate actions speak volumes about their priorities. Some of the family heads, probably those leaders named earlier, stepped forward and gave free will offerings.
Free will, so not required.
Not required. Voluntary donations specifically towards rebuilding the house of God on its site.
And these were substantial offerings.
They were, given according to their ability, the text says, 61,000 drachmas of gold, 5,000 minas of silver, and 100 priestly garments.
Which, even if we struggle with exact modern values, sounds like a lot of precious metal and resources.
It was significant. And the fact they gave this immediately, right upon arrival, before even sorting out their own housing, it just powerfully shows their main motivation.
Restoring the temple?
Restoring the temple and their religious life was absolutely central. It wasn't a long-term goal. It was priority one.
A really powerful statement of commitment, as you said.
Definitely.
Okay, so after the offerings, the chapter ends by describing how they actually settled down.
Yes, the final verses describe the resettlement process. It says the priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, and temple servants settled first, each group going to their designated or perhaps ancestral towns.
Makes sense. Get the core religious and administrative functions established quickly.
Exactly. Then it mentions some of the other people settling in their towns, maybe families with clear land claims or going to specific areas.
Finally.
The rest of the Israelites settled in their towns. It suggests a widespread, organized effort to reoccupy the land of Judah, returning to their roots.
So looking back at this whole chapter, this incredibly detailed list, what's the main takeaway?
I think what you see is the blueprint for a society literally putting itself back together after being shattered. This meticulous record-keeping isn't just, ancient bureaucracy.
It's more than that.
Much more. It's an assertion of who they are, their identity. It's a claim to the land based on that identity. And it's a clear plan for rebuilding, focusing on both the physical structure of the temple and the spiritual life it represented.
It really is like a snapshot, isn't it? Capturing the essential parts of a people determined to rebuild, starting with knowing who they were and where they belonged.
That was a great way to put it. Ezra 2 is really a foundational document, proof of this community's deliberate effort to record, reestablish, and reclaim their identity and their place after exile. The numbers, the names, the categories, it all reflects their traditions, the practical needs of the moment, and the huge challenge of bringing a scattered people back together.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? The sheer level of detail counting donkeys, listing obscure family names, tracking gold and silver offerings. What does that meticulousness tell us about the mindset needed for such a colossal task?
It suggests an incredible focus, a deep need for order amidst the potential chaos, and a profound sense of purpose. They weren't just surviving, they were rebuilding with intention.
Rebuilding their entire world from the ground up, based on memory, records, and faith. Something really worth pondering.
Indeed. It speaks volumes about resilience and the human need for structure and identity, especially after trauma and displacement.
A really fascinating deep dive into this chapter. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's a rich text.
And thank you for listening to the deep dive. We hope this exploration of Ezra chapter 2 gave you some fresh perspective on this pivotal moment in history.